We were not let in for 4 days, and that's their choice. We continue to offer assistance. I even visited our Tucson office where we had 150 agents and analysts working on the Nancy Guthrie case to provide intelligence. What the FBI is great at, what we did when we finally had access to the Ring doorbell camera, for example, we went to our partners at Google and we said, hey, we know that there wasn't a paid subscription service, but let's go look at the metadata and see if we can find a needle in a needle in a needle in a haystack. And what do? We pull that out. Same thing with the DNA. We offered our assistants to go test the DNA, and it's up to them. They chose to use a private laboratory. It's like a child abduction case or missing persons case. You need the first 48 hours to hit the ground hard. And again, the state and locals are in charge of those investigations. We, the FBI, don't take ownership of them. We've continued to offer assistance. We continue to do it now. And we will show up for any investigative examinations that they wish our assistance on, whether it's our laboratories in Quantico. But that's the nature between state and federal and local law enforcement.
The story surrounding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has taken another dramatic turn. Not because of a major breakthrough in the case itself, but because several widely circulated claims are now being challenged as investigators continue searching for answers. In recent days, renewed discussion about law enforcement actions, forensic evidence, and the role of Nancy Guthrie's family has reshaped public understanding of what may have happened during the critical early days of the investigation. At the center of the latest developments are questions about FBI involvement, disputed reports regarding private investigators, and new details about advanced forensic testing that could eventually provide the answers investigators have been seeking for months. Before we continue, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you can receive first-hand updates on this story and others as soon as new information becomes available. One of the most significant developments involves renewed criticism from FBI Director Cash Patel regarding the early stages of the investigation. Patel has once again publicly stated that the FBI was prevented from fully participating in the case for 4 days after Nancy Guthrie disappeared. According to Patel, federal investigators and analysts were prepared to assist immediately, but access was delayed because local authorities maintained control over the investigation during those crucial first days. The claim has reignited debate about whether valuable time may have been lost during the period when Nancy Guthrie was first reported missing. Supporters of Patel's position argue that missing person cases often depend heavily on the first several days of investigative activity. They point out that witnesses are easier to locate, surveillance footage is more likely to be preserved, and physical evidence is often in its best condition shortly after a disappearance occurs. Others caution that jurisdictional disputes between local and federal agencies are not uncommon and do not necessarily indicate misconduct or negligence. Local law enforcement agencies frequently retain primary authority over investigations that occur within their jurisdictions, especially when there is no immediate evidence suggesting a federal crime. Nevertheless, Patel's repeated statements have intensified public scrutiny of the decisions made during the earliest phase of the case. At the same time, another major claim that circulated widely online has now been publicly challenged. NewsNation correspondent Brian Enton recently addressed reports suggesting that Savannah Guthrie spent approximately $500,000 on private investigators in an effort to locate Nancy Guthrie. The story had spread rapidly across social media platforms and was repeated by numerous online commentators, often without verification. According to Enton, that claim is not accurate. His clarification has forced many observers to reconsider assumptions that had become widely accepted as fact. For months, some online discussions portrayed the family as having lost confidence in official investigators and turning to private resources instead. The alleged $500,000 investigation became a central talking point in those conversations. The correction is significant because it highlights how quickly misinformation can shape public perception during high-profile cases. Once a claim gains traction online, it can become difficult to separate verified facts from speculation. In this instance, many people accepted the story without clear evidence supporting it. The clarification also helps establish a more accurate picture of the investigative landscape. Despite the widespread rumors, official efforts remain concentrated within local law enforcement agencies and the FBI. There has been no verified indication that a massive privately funded parallel investigation has replaced or overshadowed the work being conducted by authorities. This distinction matters because public confidence in an investigation is often influenced by perceptions regarding the family's trust in law enforcement. If people believe a family has abandoned official channels, they may assume investigators are failing. The correction regarding the private investigator claim suggests that those assumptions may have been overstated. In fact, Savannah Guthrie's public comments throughout the investigation have consistently reflected a combination of grief, hope, and trust in the authorities working the case. While she has understandably expressed frustration over the lack of answers, her statements have generally emphasized cooperation with investigators rather than opposition to them. Family members of missing persons often face an incredibly difficult balancing act. They must advocate for continued attention to the case while also maintaining working relationships with the agencies responsible for conducting the investigation. Savannah Guthrie's comments appear to reflect that reality. Her public appearances and interviews have focused largely on keeping Nancy's story in the public eye while encouraging anyone with information to come forward. These developments have also brought renewed attention to the ongoing disagreement regarding when meaningful FBI involvement actually began. Patel's account suggests federal resources could have been deployed immediately but were delayed. Other accounts indicate that communication and cooperation between agencies began earlier than critics acknowledge. Determining the exact timeline remains important because it influences how investigators evaluate missed opportunities and lessons learned. However, regardless of where individuals stand on the dispute, most observers agree that the focus ultimately remains on finding answers rather than assigning blame. One area where federal resources appear to have made a measurable difference involves digital evidence. Investigators were able to recover important footage from a Google Nest doorbell camera, evidence that has been repeatedly described as significant in understanding events surrounding Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Digital evidence has become increasingly important in modern investigations. Doorbell cameras, security systems, mobile devices, vehicle tracking systems, and other technologies frequently provide timelines that traditional investigative methods cannot easily reconstruct. In many cases, a single piece of digital evidence can dramatically alter the direction of an investigation. The recovered footage reportedly became a critical component of the case, helping investigators establish timelines and evaluate witness statements. Its recovery demonstrates how modern forensic and technological tools can preserve evidence that might otherwise have been lost. Meanwhile, the forensic side of the investigation continues to expand. Authorities are reportedly utilizing multiple specialized laboratories as part of an extensive DNA analysis effort. Genetic genealogy experts have also become involved, reflecting the increasingly sophisticated methods available to investigators. Unlike traditional DNA testing, genetic genealogy can sometimes identify individuals or relationships through distant family connections contained within genealogy databases. The technique has been used successfully in numerous high-profile cases and has transformed cold case investigations across the country. The involvement of multiple laboratories suggests investigators are pursuing every available avenue to maximize the value of the evidence collected. Different facilities may specialize in distinct analytical methods, allowing evidence to be examined from multiple scientific perspectives. Particularly important is the fact that investigators are reportedly dealing with mixed DNA evidence. While mixed samples can present challenges, they can also create multiple investigative pathways. Advanced forensic techniques may help separate individual genetic profiles, identify contributors, and generate new leads that would not have been possible using older technologies. Experts note that mixed DNA evidence often requires extensive analysis and repeated testing. Although the process can be time-consuming, advancements in forensic science continue improving investigators' ability to interpret complex samples. At the same time, authorities have not limited their efforts to laboratory work alone. Investigators continue reviewing thousands of tips submitted by members of the public. Each tip must be evaluated, documented, and compared against known facts before determining whether it may contribute useful information. The sheer volume of information generated in high-profile cases can be overwhelming. Investigators frequently spend countless hours eliminating false leads before uncovering details that genuinely advance an investigation. While many tips ultimately lead nowhere, some of the most important breakthroughs in missing person cases have originated from seemingly minor observations reported by ordinary citizens. Authorities are also continuing to explore emerging forensic technologies that may provide additional opportunities for analysis. As scientific capabilities evolve, evidence that once appeared inconclusive can sometimes yield valuable information years later. Taken together, these developments paint a more nuanced picture of the Nancy Guthrie investigation than many of the headlines and social media posts have suggested. The widely circulated claim that Savannah Guthrie spent $500,000 on private investigators has now been publicly discredited. Questions remain about whether jurisdictional disagreements slowed the earliest stages of the investigation, but those debates exist alongside ongoing investigative work rather than replacing it. Most importantly, the case remains active. Investigators continue analyzing evidence, reviewing tips, utilizing advanced forensic techniques, and pursuing every credible lead available to them. The involvement of multiple laboratories, genetic genealogy specialists, and continuing FBI resources demonstrates that authorities have not abandoned the search for answers. While months have passed without a definitive resolution, the investigation remains very much alive. Families, investigators, and supporters continue hoping that scientific advances, persistent investigative work, or a crucial piece of information from the public will eventually reveal what happened to Nancy Guthrie. Until then, the focus remains on facts rather than rumors, evidence rather than speculation, and the ongoing pursuit of truth in a case that continues to captivate public attention.